Okay, let's jump right in on the parents. Actually, you said they could use some calming down at times. So I want to go. I want to go back around to the history of Sweetman swimmers, and there's a lot here we want to jump into. But suffice it to say, the way you run your program, you have parents. Some parents, a lot of parents, completely on edge, like can hardly watch this. So what are you doing with your swim program that's causing that reaction with the parents? It's different from other swim programs.
Well, first and foremost, before we get to that point, we take them through a 1-hour meeting. And in this 1-hour meeting, we describe exactly everything that they can expect over the course of a week. If a parent has been coming to us for 4, 5, or 6 years, they still continue to come to that meeting because there is a lot to learn. You know, in saving a life, or in, for example, someone scaling a wall and rock climbing, there's a sense of safety that, and probably putting somebody on edge. We're putting normally parents on edge, not intentionally, but we're putting parents on edge because we're helping their children to save their life. Here's the thing. If you have a young child and you take them to a supermarket and you're walking through the parking lot and you're a parent that really doesn't say much to your child, doesn't make your child mind, that child really doesn't care at a young age about whether they have safety or not. They will just wander off and maybe get hurt or jump in a white van or do whatever. Yep. So in comes a bit of structure, a bit of rules, maybe different from what they, without judgment, getting at home.
Yes.
In this regard, you know, we demand excellence in a very loving / tough love kind of way. Lots of hugs and kisses. So all of this is there to help to calm the parent.
Yes.
Or parents or grandparents. Sometimes grandparents and babysitters are normally the ones that revolt because, you know, they're at that point where nobody told me about this. So I was just told to take them to swim lessons.
Yes.
So they want to jump in and be the hero.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what if someone is going to, if someone is walking by, I know this isn't possible with your property, but if someone happens to be walking by, you're in the middle of an average swim class and they look over and see, what are they going to see? Like, what is it here that is putting parents on edge or that's different than a normal swim
can I
class?
speak to that?
You go for it.
I think, well, for one, the program itself has been going for forever. I mean, for 50 years or so, you know, with his mom starting it. And there is a reputation of the program that is talked about amongst parents.
Yes.
So there's no advertising done.
Oh,
now that
wow.
there's no advertising ever that's ever been done. Now that we have
Really?
social media,
And you guys sell out your classes.
our classes fill up.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's all word of mouth.
We
and
do have a
reputation.
website now, though.
We do. We have a website, but that's not advertising.
Yep.
You know, we've got social media, but other than that, there's no advertising platform. And so it's all word of mouth, and it's all reputation. And this is word of mouth and reputation that has been built over, you know, decades. And so the parents will be, maybe here's a good example. You'll have a parent at a pool with their kids who've come through the Sweetman program, and you'll have a parent with their kids who haven't, and they're looking and they're watching and they're seeing this family and these children, and they're amazed at their ability and their comfort in the water.
Yes.
And so they'll initiate a conversation. Wow, your kids are amazing. Where did they learn, you know, to swim? Oh, well, you know, our kids have all gone to Sweetman Swimmers. So, you know, and then it's like, you know, well, it may have been tough, but it was worth it.
Yes.
You know, so it's all word of mouth, and it's all kind of a reputation-based thing. And so
Yes.
you're thinking, oh my God, I'm going to enroll in this program, and I've heard all these crazy things about it, you know, but they get there and they realize wow, they love these kids so much, and they're teaching my child first and foremost how to survive in the water.
Yes.
You know, and so then they see it firsthand. But like Brendan said, we sit with them for an hour the first day of class, and we talk to them and we answer questions, and we kind of give them an idea of what they can expect.
Yes. So you guys, it seems to me you have a system, you have a process. You're there to train that child, first of all, to keep them safe, and second, to learn how to swim and how to enjoy that. And so you have a purpose and a goal, and that purpose is above just the comfort in the moment of the child, correct? Because
That's
if the
right.
goal is the comfort of the child, now that child is walking across the parking lot, it's all about that child. In the supermarket, it's all about that child. And it's just whatever makes them comfortable, but that's not necessarily what's good for the child.
That's right.
So with you guys, what really impressed me is I saw this past summer we sent Lincoln, Jackson, Ava, Jericho. We sent I guess at the time it was all of the kids that we had. We have had a fifth one since then.
Congratulations.
And that's gonna do it for the Lapp family.
You're not Catholic, are you?
No, we're not. So I've taken measures. So at the time, Jericho was our youngest, and he was right around 2, a little less than 2 years old. And here is Jericho, who, he's young, and he's somewhat obedient some of the time, but he's still young, okay? If we're at a swimming pool, he doesn't sit by the side of the swimming pool and just sit there with kind of his hands in his lap, watching and observing. He's at your class, probably day 3, sitting by the pool like a stone, just observing. And next to him is another 18-month or 24-month-old child. They're just both sitting there, just looking. How does that happen? That's got nothing to do with swimming. How does that happen?
Being brave to jump off the cliff with the child and actually say, this is what we expect. And at a very, very young age, even at 1 year old, at 2 years old, they understand that. Of course, you're going to speak to a toddler different from a baby, and an older child different from the two previous. So we want to get them mesmerized. We want all ages to be in one class so they all have the ability to learn from the other. Because I guarantee you, more in our classes, the older ones are learning from the younger ones. So that's the way. And so how do we do that? It's through an energy. It's through an energy which is bigger than us, which started way back in New Zealand, Aotearoa, the land of the long white cloud, when my mother was young. And all these philosophies of parenting, of our culture there, have come over come to America when my parents came here, and were adopted and really entrenched not only in us as children, but in our swim program. So there's a lot more happening than just a child learning how to swim.
Yes.
And that is something. If you could copyright something, it would be that. But you can't, and I can't teach that.
Yeah.
I can't. It's very, very difficult to teach that to. If I wanted to go out and teach the world, it'd be something that I think they could learn it depending on where they come from, the way they have been raised as a child, to be able to do the best they can to adopt those ideas. But it's we definitely have an energy, and it's all pervading, and it's at times difficult to be able to see. To see it clearly, but it all comes around. And we want our parents to be in our swim program long enough to feel that palpable energy which is around our pool, and what we're hopefully helping their children to adopt in their life.
Okay. So, so in the case of a 2-year-old that on a normal day, he's not just sitting by the pool, but he's running around the pool, and the parents are having to go get him and drag him back and say, don't run at the pool. And 30 seconds later, he's running at the pool again. And that type of child, which is a lot of 2-year-olds just in their natural habitat. Sure. Again, I was seeing kids sitting by the side of your pool that I assume don't normally just sit by pools. Are you having some kind of a... what is the force that's causing that to happen? Like, day one, are they just
Magic.
realizing? Yeah, what's the magic here? Are they just realizing that you mean business when you say sit there, or are you providing some kind of positive or negative reinforcement? What's causing that behavior, that good behavior, in your class?
I think it's a combination of things.
Yeah, and the greatest thing we have here, not to overtalk you, but the greatest thing we have here is direct experience. If you are constantly putting your child into water wings, which we think have actually played part in a lot of children drowning in this country and in the world.
Water wings, puddle jumpers, any type of flotation.
Oh, you said
device.
water
Flotation.
wings.
Water wings.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
If you
Puddle
put a
jumpers.
child in water wings and you're constantly, our kids are very programmable.
Okay.
If you're programming your child to never go by water,
Yes.
do not go by water unless
Yes.
you have these toys on, these flotation devices on.
Yes.
Your child is going to become used to that type of behavior. If like we have 2 and 3 and 4 year olds, there's no programming. I guarantee you, I say this humbly, in this world, if a 2 and 3 year old decides to not listen to us, and we don't say anything, we back and we let that child do what he's going to do, and he comes and he jumps in the water, that is his greatest teacher.
Yeah.
That's teaching
Direct
him
experience.
not
Yeah.
to put his hand on the stove. This is
Yes.
hot. Continuing to keep him away from that is not the answer. And you don't have to be able to read a book or novel or understand articulately what your mother and father are saying. But you understand that without words. It goes beyond words, and that is the hidden medicine, the hidden magic. That is that force that you speak of.
But there are plenty of kids that don't want to sit by the pool.
Yes.
You know, they don't. But like Brennan said, they just have to have a direct experience with what will happen if they choose not to sit by the pool.
I see.
So, you know,
But they learn pretty quick.
they learn very quickly.
Yes.
Yeah.
So at your program, if they don't sit by the pool, what does happen? Are they thrown into the water, or
No.
what is the?
If a child, let's say, give me an example of how old we're talking about. How old a child?
I mean, let's just say Jericho.
2 years old.
2 years old.
Okay. So Jericho doesn't want to sit by the side of the pool. To be honest with you, 2-year-olds don't normally act that way. If you allow them to have that experience, if they want to jump around and get up and move around, I want them to have fun. I want them to have amazement. If they see a butterfly, how about we talk about not only the beauty of the butterfly, but have a bit of psychology 101 and turn it back around and say, do you know, Jericho, we taught butterflies how to swim. And it's making a connection there. So he's starting to respect us in a way. And kids that scream and cry just because they get upset does not mean that us as a teacher who may be uninformed on how to handle that situation, to back away and have this unconscious fear of trying to make the child do something just because they're crying.
Yes.
That's not going to work. That's not going to fly in our swim program.
Yes.
It's something that we have to overcome. And once you overcome it, you realize this is actually probably the way we've been parenting our children. Could have a bit more strength behind it,
Yes.
and in the long run make it easier for the parents.
Yes, I totally agree. And that was one of the reasons that I wanted to have you guys on the podcast, and we'll definitely get into swimming. I want to dive deep into that. But I did notice that you guys had a way about the way you handled the program, handled the children, that seemed like, boy, there's a lot of takeaways there to with parenting in general. Because I observed that in your swim program, it's not, whatever the kid wants flies. And quite frankly, I get the sense that the mission is above the comfort of the child.
It is.
And don't you think that's where some
Point.
people go wrong with parenting? It's
Yes.
like the comfort of the child is all that matters. Well, actually, no, your mission as a parent is like to raise these kids.
Yeah.
And that means that you need a parent and direct. So what do you think, just on this topic of parenting here? I'm curious what are some of the most common mistakes you see parents making? I want to even just say, just in their parenting, because you guys see a lot of kids and you see a lot of parents. So swimming aside for a second, what are the most common mistakes you see parents making just behaviorally with their children?
Ooh, you know, this is such a double-edged sword because every parent's different, and we respect that. We might not always agree with it. But it is their choice of how they want to raise and parent their child, right? That's really not our business.
Yeah.
But as far as how they parent them around our pool, that's where it becomes our business. And so I think, you know, there are plenty of parents that this program won't work for because it is structured. We do expect a lot out of the children, and we expect even more out of the parent. So it has to be teamwork. It's teamwork. And, you know, it's the same thing with, you know, parents in a household. You know, you have to work as a team raising those kids if you know, have two parents in the household. And you're not always going to agree on everything, but for the betterment of the child, you're going to agree on what's most important. Mm-hmm. You know, you're typically going to agree, or you need to agree on what's most important. And so it's kind of the same thing in the swim program. What's most important is that child learning to save their life.
Yes.
And every parent will approach that different. You know, some parents are like hardcore. They're going to do what I say. You know, this is not an option. Some parents, that's not their thing. And so they're like, I'm bribing them. You know, this is, I'm going to bribe them to get them, you know, to do this. And that's fine if that's going to work for them, you know. So I'm not going to speak on mistakes that parents make because.
Well, I will say a mistake.
He will.
I see. You know, I've been raised in a family that's pretty hardcore. I've been raised from a very, very young age, of having the right, even though I was young, having the experience as a teacher to kick these older people out of my backyard. From a very young age, my mother gave me the right to kick parents out of the backyard. Not out of respect for them, but just leave, let us do our job. We know how to do it. So it's entrenched in me. It's entrenched in my brother. And it comes from upbringing by our mother and our father, you know, especially our mother, you know. I mean, that's it. But there's one thing I would say, and I know you said just parenting in general. There's one thing I'll say in relation to swim program. I hear parents, and it doesn't matter how much we tell them not to do this, they will say, do you want to come back?
Yes. Letting the child make the decision.
That's like, you know, saying,
letting the child make the decision.
Do you want to go to school? Yeah. Do you want to go to the doctor? Do you want to take a bath?
Do you want to take this medicine to get better? Right?
Yes.
So it becomes a
that tells me that I get the parents are trying to be open-minded in bringing in the child's feelings. I get that, and I think all of us, no matter how we parent, we have to bring in the child's feelings somehow. But in that moment, when the child has gone through something that they may not particularly like, when that's the first thing you say to them, you're going to get the total dichotomy of the extreme. No.
Yeah, of course. Of course. Well, okay, so what's fascinating about that is I wonder then if most parents have your swim training in the wrong category. And is the category maybe in like, oh, let's see if Johnny's going to be an Olympic swimmer. Let's see if he loves the water. Let's see if he's going to turn out to be a swimmer. And let's try this class and let's see if that's so. Okay, Johnny didn't like it. Apparently he's not going to be a good swimmer. Now, you may get to there, but that's like step 2 or 3, right? Step 1 for you guys is if your training is successful, this child falls into the water next week, God forbid, at a pool or the swim park or the ocean, and doesn't die.
Yeah.
So when you put it in that category of survival, Well, yeah, you would never ask the child, "Do you want to go back to the doctor?
Yeah.
Or do you want, go to school?"
Do you want to
Of
hold my
course.
hand in this busy parking lot while we
Exactly,
cross?
yeah.
No, you're going to.
And it's kind of scary to think, and this is the case, that there are parents out there that have heard about our swim program and know what we do, and it has taken their child, one of their children drowning, for the other ones to actually come to our swim program, which is a hard pill to swallow,
Yep.
or their child has almost drowned. I get that. I know we're all going from it from a different angle,
Yep.
but I tell parents, I said, okay, I've asked you to go by our rules. And do you want your child to listen? They go, yes. How can your child listen when you don't? The apple doesn't fall far from the tree. So let's start with you. Let's get you on our side, get you strong with us. Let's create this energy between us that can be transferred to the child. It's all about energy. I mean, we now know the body, even though we're physical, we're 99.9% nothingness. The energy field we will not live without our energy field. There is much energy going on from person to person. There's a lot of epigenetics, the environmental energetic effects that one thing has on another. We think about all this, and we talk about this on a daily basis in our meetings.
Okay, interesting.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, I do want to ask one more question as it pertains to parenting, because I saw this on your website and really agree with it. And so it says there that parents must understand that it is of utmost importance for our program to have 100% of their support in order for the lessons to be successful for their child. Without this support and trust from our parents, our swim program cannot survive. It must have dedication and teamwork between the parents and the teachers. And so my question here is, do you believe this is transferable to other areas of life where the parent doesn't side with the teacher as they ought, or they don't side with the soccer coach as they ought, even if they disagree? Now, I'm not saying in every single case, but I wonder what damage is done in the development of a child of too often just siding with the child because he's your child.
And that's hard.
so-
It's very emotional.
Yes.
If you think about it, it's incredibly emotional. And that's why this program is so different, because we deal with that
Yes.
every single day.
Yep.
I don't know how many times a day, because
Yeah.
we're dealing with the emotion of the parent.
Yes.
And that is, it comes through from the child, through the parent to us.
Yes.
And so it's really interesting because, the way that you just referred to it as you're siding with the child because of a coach or teacher, what we're dealing with is much different. This is life and death. It's not just having fun.
Yeah.
It's not just learning how to swim. It's life and death. And so it takes on a whole different level of importance. And I'm not meaning that in a, insulting kind of way. Everybody's important, in the jobs that they do with our children or with children, especially teachers, coaches. But it takes on a different, like Brendan said, a different energy, because you are dealing with a life and death situation at that point.
Yeah, that makes total sense.
So to go back to your question, you're saying the detrimental nature of a parent siding with your child over a coach?
If the parent always sort of backs down and kind of sides with Johnny instead of, hey, the parent doesn't agree with that call that was just made either, but the call was made in the case of soccer or whatever, the call was made, and you're just going to go with the call. I mean, the refs are there for a reason, and not just always siding with the child. I guess that's my point, is I can see how your program requires the parents to be completely on board, and then it works.
Yeah. Yes.
And so I'm just thinking, what other areas in life are like that we
Yeah.
don't necessarily see?
Right.
The parents need to be on board, or it's really not going to work.
Right.
That's right. Even with our son, he swims. He swims at Nashville Aquatic Club, downtown Nashville. We love it. And you know what? No matter what happens, and, you know, he doesn't have issues, but in relation to not liking something. But if he did, I'd say, go talk to your coach
Yeah.
about it.
Yes.
We're going to step back, and we're trying not to get involved in situations like that.
Yes.
Although, I think that what makes us different from a lot of other swim programs is, number one, we're very clear. We want the parents to watch our swim program. We want them to see everything we do. I do not like when, okay, drop them off and you'll get to see at the end of a week, 2, 3, 4 weeks what your progress is. I want you to see what your child's doing. And some parents will say, well, I just can't watch. I want to come back at the end. And I said, so, ma'am, sir, you're sending the message to yourself and to your future generations that you're only wanting to play part when everything's good and fuzzy.
Yeah.
And not during the tough times.
And I want you to celebrate going through those tough times with your kid with the main premise, this totem pole in the middle, strong stability to
Yes.
be able to handle that situation and to let your child know that you are there for us and you back us. And that right there is what helps a child get over it. Parents come to our swim program, I can tell you straight away, and I will go and look at them in the face, and I'll say, you don't support me. And it shows in the way the child responds in the water. And
Yeah.
it's just a thought form.
Yes.
It's just the way they are. They may not even necessarily say anything to the child, but just what they're feeling.
Energetically.
And
Yes.
how they're representing themselves when they drop the kid off, coming down, and their child is clasping onto them and doesn't want to sit down, and they make us get out of the water to come help them. And, you know, that happens a couple of times, and I'll say, Mommy, Daddy, I want you're the parent, I want you to be the parent enough to let your child see that it's okay. Because the message you're sending to your child, if you make us come get them, that you don't want to stand up and be, I don't want to say the bad guy, but you don't want to be the strong dad
Yeah.
or strong mother for your child to be able to save their life.
Yes, I get that. And I totally understand, you know, I understand where those parents are coming from. I mean, last summer we sent 4 of our kids.
Yeah.
2 of them, I was like, no matter what happens, it's good for them. They can handle it. The third one, I was like, man, I don't know if this kid's I don't know if he's going to get it. Like, this might be the one kid that they can't train. You know what I mean? And then little Jericho, he adores me and I adore him. And I was like, I can't hardly stand this. But
The
but I
walls
just-
came tumbling down,
But I
right?
just looked at it objectively. You guys have been doing this a long time. You're experts.
Yeah. Thank
you.
We can trust you. We're just going to go through the system and try to do it right, you know, and just get fully on board. And my wife did, and it worked. So thank
and
you.
I think that's key right there is that, and I will tell, because sometimes it's better to hear it from a mama to mama,
Mm-hmm.
you know, it just is. Because I watched both of our kids go through our swim program.
And she got kicked out a
and I
lot
got
too,
kicked out
folks.
of our own
No,
backyard.
you didn't.
I did, absolutely.
Oh,
I'm a
yes, she
mother.
did.
Oh,
You know,
wow.
so I have all of those same emotions.
Yeah.
I feel all those same emotions and have felt all those same emotions that those moms are feeling.
Yes.
You know, when they bring their kids to us, but I let them know, I'm like, if you can just put it into perspective, right? Of, okay, this is so tiny in the broad scheme of what's actually taking place here, and that is getting your child to be safe and learn how to survive in the water.
Yes.
The little bit of discomfort and the tears that they're having, I mean, those kids are safer in the water in our backyard than they're ever going to be,
Yeah,
ever.
yeah.
And if you can just put it into perspective that way, it really kind of helps decompress the emotions, you
Yes.
know, decompress the intensity of the situation that you might be feeling at the time.
Absolutely.
You know, it's minimal and it's short-lived, that discomfort.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's kind of circle back around for those listeners that haven't been on your website, don't know anything about what you do. Can you talk to us about what this is what is your system? What is that you do with training kids how to swim. And then let's also go back to where did this come from? Because I understand it's a family business. So let's circle back around and talk about that. But what is it that you do, and then how did we get here?
It's just magic.
Well, what is it we do? We want every child to have the ability to save their life, number one. And until they can save their life, we will keep working on that. And even after they save their life, there'll be different levels of tests that we will give them to make sure in almost every situation that they have the ability to save their life. On a 2 and 3 year old in their first week of swimming lessons, to be able to float on their bloody back for 45 minutes is incredible.
Yeah.
For a child that doesn't want to come to the pool to be able to do this. And it's just about us not putting up with nonsense, so showing them that we love them and we're not scared of them, and we're not going to back down just because they get upset with us. Continue to love. Love is the number one thing here. Continue to give them a lot of support and let them know, and everything else falls away. The highest level of them, us knowing, and kids that have passed this test, it's called the TREAD test. We've never lost a child in 50 years, ever have we lost a child to drowning. We've had some close calls, but we have not. Go ahead.
In your class, you're saying you're
In the
talking
program.
about, or kids that have went through
That
the
have
program.
gone through kids, families that have been dedicated
Yep.
to the program and have stayed the course.
Yep.
Yes. No.
After the program, you're saying a couple years later, a kid gets in a dicey situation. You've never lost a kid that has went through the program.
Right.
Yeah, and we've actually, we're in the throes of doing a documentary, which is going to be called Still and Quiet. And we hope, syndicate like Netflix and stuff like that pick it up, because it is a very, very important message in a world that tends to be going a bit lax in the other way. We are staying strong at a time when Pediatric Society said, oh, don't teach your kid to swim until they're 5 years old. And we're sitting there in the 70s laughing and going, what are they talking about?
Yeah.
And now they're saying teach them as early as 1. So getting back to what we were saying, I'm trying to remember what we were talking about.
Your swim program.
The swim program
teaching
and the
kids.
TREAD test. So we've had children that have passed this test that have been washed out in the ocean, and they have immediately gone to what they know. See, if you teach a child enough from a young age, it will be memorable. It will stay in their body. That's what we want. Having a child, oh no, little Johnny has done it one time. This is one of getting back to your previous questions. What a big mistake that parents make. Little Johnny knows how to rest on their back, so daddy thinks he can do the job himself. Little Johnny gets to a certain point, mommy and daddy don't want to be rattled anymore. They're at a particular level where there's a part of them they're saying this is enough. We've had a lot of children like that have been in situations that have come close to drowning.
Or have actually drowned and been revived.
Oh, wow.
But we the larger level of teaching them how to go through a TREAD test of 45 minutes with us making big waves in the water. With them, we're teaching them how to breathe and be calm in a very, very tense situation. And if they can pass that test, the chances of them in most situations in the ocean are going to turn out well. Listen, I'm not going to take your child to the ocean. What's the next best thing? We have to do it in a controlled environment. And, and I know we talked about how kind of tough we are, but we are so empathetic and compassionate to children. In that test, all the teachers are splashing, making big waves with these big boats. We lose a lot of water on that day. Every Thursday we do it. And I don't do much of the splashing. What I'm doing is I am a natural born empath. So I feel it's the other job I do. I work with people, and I help people in healing through psychological traumatic type situation, post-traumatic stress. So I'm feeling where the kids are.
Yes.
And if I feel they're having an issue, I will come and I will say, come on, you can do this. I love you. I want you to focus on my eyes. want to go up and down, and you help them get through it.
Yes.
And if they don't, and you still sense they're not ready for it, I may put them on the ladder and make them hold on where they feel secure enough and make them do it that way. Then at the end, I may bring them back out and say, come on, you can do this. Give them a moment just to collect their thoughts. And when they get back out there, boom, they nail it. And normally from then on out, they'll never have a problem with it again.
Yes.
We've had children that has taken 12 years to pass a tread test.
Well, this
wow.
this is advanced. This is for
Okay.
advanced students.
Okay.
Not for beginner
Yeah,
students.
this is
Anyways,
totally for
good
advanced
point.
students that are learning all 4 strokes, ready to go to swim team if they want.
I see.
This is for older students, advanced students
Yep.
that have been in the program for many years.
Yep.
That have started from babies and are now 8, 9 years old.
I see.
But the thing about it is that it's the program is from survival all the way through advanced, and so many people don't realize that because the biggest thing is, oh, my kid is going to learn how to save their life, which that's what we want. And like Brendan said, some parents are comfortable. They get to a point and they're like, oh, we're good here at this level and we're done.
Yep.
But a lot of times they'll come back to us 2 years later.
Okay.
Or we'll see them again at some point. A lot of times we will.
Yes.
But we have families that will stay with us for 6, 7, 8 years from beginning to what we call graduation. We actually have a graduation process, and part of it is
Okay.
passing that tread, and that's
Okay.
an intense situation that the kids have to go through.
I
and
see.
so, but it's mental. So it's a physical thing that they're having to overcome, but it's even more of a mental thing that they're overcoming, within themselves.
Yes.
Knowing I can do this.
Yep.
I can actually do this. And swimming in general is a huge confidence boost. Sorry. It's a huge confidence boost because you see a child that learns how to roll over and rest on their back.
Yes.
That is one step.
Yep.
Then they move on and they're learning how to swim down the pool and blow bubbles.
Yes.
That is an additional amazing step.
Yep.
And every little step that they're making and progressing, it is a huge confidence boost. And,
Yes.
And we celebrate that.
Yes.
The instructors and the parent. It is a big deal.
Yes.
It's a
They
celebration.
definitely know they're loved.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. And I saw that. Yeah, I think that's really great. Yeah, can you give us what the steps are? So I knew that, I think kind of as far as Jericho got last year, it was like going into the water face down and then twisting over on his back. Ava at the time I think she was 3. She was about to turn 4, which I know, there's probably a lot of 3 and 4 year olds that are just swimming like champs, but these kids have never really, we didn't have them in swim training. And so my expectations were not that high, frankly, but by the end of the first week, Ava's floating for it like indefinitely, 45 minutes,
Yeah.
whatever. And even in the pool, a few weeks later, she can just, and here, to me, that was impressive. I'm sure a lot of kids are way better than that. But I didn't consider necessarily our kids like natural born swimmers or whatever. I've always loved the water, but didn't feel like I was ever great in it. So step 1 is turning and floating. And the idea there is they can just float for as long as they need to survive.
Yeah.
So
Because
then-
the air is up here, and then if they're above the water, they can call for help, or you can hear them crying, and then there's not always a side to get to, right? So you want them to be able to stay stable, resting on their back, so because that's the best possibility for survival.
Yes.
Yeah.
So if that's step 1, what are the other steps that you have going through until, say, graduation?
Well, so that would be considered beginner, right?
Okay.
That is beginner. But in actual beginner, there's multiple levels of beginner, right? So you have beginner learning how to roll over and rest on their back, right? And then of course it's an age thing too, because you might have a 9-month-old baby that can actually, and they do it. It's amazing to see, are dropped into the water and they roll over. Now, will they
amazing.
stay there, right? Sometimes they will. A lot of times they won't. They're babies, right?
They keep rolling.
Right. Or
Okay.
they'll just, they just don't have it in their core strength yet to maybe stay there for a long period of time.
And some will roll back
and
over
some will roll back
and
over.
start swimming.
Yeah, so
Just
I mean,
naturally
every kid
start
is
swimming.
different.
Yeah.
Yeah. Every kid is different, and we know that. You know, the program knows that. Miss Carolyn, when she started that program, knew that, and that's what makes it so unique. Is because within the beginner class, there's multiple levels of beginner.
I see.
Right, and then you move on to what's called beginner strokes. So once the child has learned how to roll over and rest and be solid on their back, the survival part, then they get to start actually learning how to swim properly and
blow
that
bubbles.
yeah, and blow bubbles, and that takes a
What
long
kind of bubbles
time.
do we blow, Wendy?
Long, slow, true, honest bubbles.
Oh, really? Is that what you teach?
Yeah, and that's what Miss
Okay.
Carolyn. Yeah, so Brendan's mom.
And we have them repeat over and,
that's
over again.
and they learn
Long,
it long, slow, true, honest,
honest
bubbles.
Bubbles.
For
Okay.
them to be nice and calm. I don't want kids holding their breath. We want them to stay nice and calm. You remember, the name of our documentary is going to be Still and Quiet, and we want kids to learn how to swim slow and calm first before they start swimming fast. They can swim fast later on if they want to go on a swim team.
Yes.
So,
Okay.
you know, and then once they do their arms,
Yeah.
they
It's all put together in pieces.
Okay.
So learning to swim. So I was like you. I could swim. I could save my life probably if I needed to. But as far as being on a swim team and doing my strokes, no. You know, I'm just not,
Yeah.
I'm not a strong swimmer that way. So when I became involved in the program, you know, so many years ago when Brendan and I came together, his mom trained me when I was pregnant with our son.
Oh, wow.
And so, and then I started working some in the program at that point. But it was amazing to me the steps that are taken to teach proper swim technique, because so many times people think, oh, my child can swim. He's swimming under the water. You know, oh, my child can swim. He's doing doggy paddle, you know, this crazy
Yes.
nonsense in the water. That is not swimming. That is not. It's not swimming. So, you know, teaching proper swim technique, and the first one is, freestyle. Blowing bubbles, rolling the head, getting the kick right, putting the arms in. Oh, my gosh, that takes a lot of time. That doesn't happen quick, and especially kids that aren't supernatural in the water takes even more time. You know, so that's beginner strokes. And once they're doing freestyle pretty well, they can at that point move on to more advanced strokes. We like for
Okay.
them to get their freestyle and their back down, starting backstroke.
Okay.
And then they can move on to the bigger swimming, which is what we call advanced strokes, and that's when they're going to learn all four of the strokes. So they're going to learn freestyle, backstroke, breaststroke, and butterfly. And it is taught properly, and it takes a while. And then they can graduate, but they have to get all their strokes down, and they have to pass the tread.
I see.
Yeah, and so it's it's a process,
Yes.
and that does not happen in one summer.
Yes,
it just
certainly.
doesn't.
So is your program designed so that, say, our 4 kids would come back again this summer for another week, and then next year for another week, or do you recommend multiple weeks every summer?
Yeah.
How kind of have you designed? What is the optimal way? You know, if people go through
It's
this.
2. We always say 2 weeks minimum in the summer.
Okay.
And then we have maintenance in the off season
Oh, okay.
to maintain what they've learned in the summer and to keep
and to
them
keep
in the
them
water.
moving forward. Keep
Yeah.
it familiar.
Keep it
Because
familiar.
6 months to a 2-year-old is a
Is-
quarter of their life,
yeah.
and
It's
they
a
will
long time.
they
Yeah.
will tend to forget things.
Yes.
Over that period. So it's keeping them familiar, keeping them continually moving
Okay.
forward, and parents talking to kids, even if you don't have a swimming pool, talking to them about what are you going to do if you fall in the water.
Keeping
I
it
did
fresh.
Okay.
all the time. Show me what you're going to do. Lay down on the floor and show me what you're going to do, and you're going to stay calm, or you're going to, we're going to find out.
I
Normally,
see.
and then as Wendy always talks to the parents about them playing with dolls in the bathtub.
Oh, that's
and
the
amazing.
best thing
Even
ever.
kids that cannot, if they see me, they'll take off running. Will start playing with dolls in the bathtub.
And role play a lot of times. Somebody
play,
will
okay.
be Mr. Brendan. Somebody will be
Mr. Brendan
Miss
always has a
Gigi.
loud voice.
Mr. Brendan is he's the But
With love, though.
It's the best. It is. It's the best thing, though, because once a child is teaching it, you know they've got it
Yes,
down,
absolutely.
man.
Yes.
Then they've mastered it. Even though
Yes.
they might not be able to do it all physically yet, up here they know.
Yeah, that's
you know?
really great.
Yeah, they know.
So you recommend 2 weeks every summer, and then
More
some,
if you can. We
Okay,
have some.
more if you
We have some
can.
families that will do 4, 5 weeks. I
Oh,
mean,
wow.
yeah,
Okay.
that's a lot, but
Okay.
minimum 2.
Minimum 2 weeks
Yeah.
of summer, and then some off-season maintenance.
Right.
Got it.
I, go ahead. I was just
Well,
gonna,
and then just generally speaking, is this for 4 years, for 5 years, for how long?
however long it takes a child. And what I was going to say is we teach children that are autistic. We teach children that have all kinds of different conditions.
Challenges. Yeah.
Deaf, blind,
Oh, yeah.
can't walk, every single situation.
wow.
So it depends on the child, depends on how long it may take them. Some kids will get in the water. If they're extremely natural, they may pick it up. Some kids will just be natural.
Yeah.
The thing is, here's statistics. About 1 or 2 in every 10 kids are natural. Most of the rest are not. Coaches on swim teams don't even know how well they have it. I'll tell you why. Because they're seeing most of the kids that they have, even if their technique is not as sound, they are a lot better than the kids we get. Most kids, and I'm interested in saving kids' lives first. Most kids you see in our swim program, there's only 2 of them that are probably natural. The other ones work at it. I love working with the ones. I love the underdog.
Yeah.
The underdog is the one that I go after because I want them to be as good as any other child. I don't want to focus myself just on kids that are really
Easy or-
doing
yeah.
really
Yeah,
well.
right.
I normally go to the hardest kids and the kids that need it. Our son, he was very uncoordinated. He's still coming. This is the thing. Even if you graduate our swim program, that is the beginning of swimming. You could be on a swim team for 8 or 10 years and still be working on things over and over. Every child learns differently. Every child hears differently. Every child has a different somatic connection with their body. And if you have a coach that understands that, they can connect with that and get through to that child.
Wow. Okay, so that's a little bit about this the program. Now, what is the history of all this?
Goes way back to the hills of New Zealand.
Well, let's start right there then.
Well, in the documentary we have coming out, there'll be some photos in there of my mother teaching at a very, very young age. So if we could say the program goes back to then, it's been going. My mom's 135 now. No, she won't enjoy me saying that. No,
turned 80.
my mother.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, she is going to kill you.
My mama's 80 now, and she started teaching at probably 7 or 8 at a pool called Morire in Morire, New Zealand. We have hot springs there. It's a beautiful place. She started teaching swimming lessons, just teaching. And she always knew from a very young age that she was going to be a teacher.
Oh, wow.
Little did she know that, she was going to meet a brilliant man and my father. It skipped a generation to our kids. So I did not get that. And basically moved here to America. And, she was a teacher in New Zealand for a while. And then...
A school teacher.
Yeah,
okay.
school
She
teacher.
was a school
And teaching
teacher.
swim in New Zealand?
No, she went to more of teaching children in a classroom setting, education was.
Okay.
From grade to grade. In primary school, we call it.
Okay.
And then she moved to America.
And when did she move here, and how old were they? or-
In the 1960s. In the 1960s, when a lot of things were not right here in the South.
Sure.
They're, my parents being totally none the wiser, driving down the street in the middle of riots. I remember hearing that story. And here's the thing: common sense. I would give some IQ points away for common sense. My mama's got common sense when it comes to teaching, and this is what we always say: the really intelligent children take a bit longer to teach in some respects. Because they
they're
tend to mental
overthink and-
things.
yeah.
So she started teaching, started using common sense. It started with my brother. My brother came out, had the umbilical cord wrapped around his neck. He was black. They
He was
almost
deprived
lost
of
him.
oxygen at birth.
Oh no.
Deprived, and so she started teaching him how to swim, and everybody started noticing. And then from there, it went to myself, and then to my brother, and it's kind of like, I would call it divine intervention. I believe everybody comes in this world for a specific reason, to teach and to bring God's gifts through us to the world. My mother's was this, and it's been passed on to us. Yeah. So,
So she started teaching here.
she started
Okay.
teaching here, and then as some, it's one of our old parents came to my house not long ago, and he said, "I just want to tell everybody something. You guys don't even know what you have here in your backyard." He goes, "We didn't only go because Miss Carolyn was the best bloody swim teacher around. We went because you never knew who you were going to see, whether it was a governor or a president to be or a country music singer. You never knew who you were going to see at Miss Carolyn's house." So
Really?
we went
Oh,
for that
interesting.
reasons as well. Yeah. So we've taught thousands, hundreds of thousands of children in the Nashville area over
Wow.
these years.
So your parents came from New Zealand.
Yes, sir.
And you and your brothers were all born here, stateside.
Well,
And-
no, Peter was born in New Zealand,
Yes.
but
Okay.
Brendan and Gareth, his other
Okay.
brother, were born here.
Okay, so it was the three of you boys, and your parents wound up here in Nashville, or where did they wind up when they came to America?
They were in Washington, D.C.,
Okay,
and then moved to Nashville. And
What
my
brought him to
father-
Nashville?
Well, my father was a doctor at Vanderbilt University, so
I
he I kind of wish he would have taken the Hawaii route. He had job offers in almost every one of the 50 states, but Hawaii, even at the time, was still more expensive than Tennessee.
Yes.
So in Nashville, so he came to Nashville and
I see.
worked at Vanderbilt in research and prostaglandins, and basically, my mother started doing some work at Vanderbilt, and then
Teaching
from there,
swim.
Okay.
she opened up teaching swim, and then she opened up her own swim program at her house. I mean, my parents lived in Belmead, and they moved from Belmead to
To
Donaldson just so she could teach swim lessons.
Oh wow, that's commitment.
Yes, it is.
Fascinating. Okay, so does this run in the blood? Like, are you all natural born swimmers, or it's just something that Miss Carolyn lit onto and was a good teacher, and this is where you wind up? I mean, is this a family of natural born swimmers, or?
I think for my, I probably have more swim experience, like the active art of swimming. But my brother runs a swim team in Murfreesboro, Streamline Aquatics. He runs a swim team up there. I went into swimming long distance. I've done a lot of ocean long distance swimming, and I was doing triathlons for a number of years, and different things like that. But definitely we were natural swimmers, and we were probably the 2 of 10 out of the pool, those
Okay.
type.
Okay.
It's we have 2 kids. We have our son Rangi, who's 14, and our daughter Maya, and Maya's
Maya
11.
younger? Okay.
Maya's 11. And like Brendan was saying earlier, Rangi is not a natural swimmer. He wasn't. He is now. He's a beautiful swimmer. He's a top age group swimmer for his age in the state of Tennessee. So he's come a long way. But it's interesting because Maya is a natural swimmer, and she was one of the youngest kids to pass the tread test. She passed it at 4.
4 and a
5.
half.
She was young.
That's-
Most kids
Wow.
don't. Yeah,
That's really
like
phenomenal.
so. She has it in her blood.
Yes.
Rangi didn't really have it. He must have taken after my side of the family,
Okay.
and then Maya took after the Sweetman
Yeah.
side. And Miss Carolyn used to say when she would watch Rangi struggling in the early days, "He is not a Sweetman. He is not a Sweetman."
But you know what our son has, and I want to say something
Drive.
about something else we
Yeah.
talked about before. He has work ethic like no other. So his work ethic is amazing.
It's
Maya's
amazing.
natural and doesn't give a
Rat's booty.
behind
Yeah.
about swimming. What I
Okay.
was gonna say before we were talking, oh my gosh. I lost it. You guys keep
shoot, I'm
talking
sorry.
about it. And
So-
I
I
keep
need
thinking,
my
So Rangi continued to swim and worked and was dedicated and still is an incredibly dedicated swimmer.
Yep.
And our daughter swam competitively too. So our kids started year-round competitive swim. Rangi was a little bit older. He was 8. Maya, we started really young because, like we said, she was a natural swimmer. We started her around 4.5, 5.
oh, okay.
And that's young to be a
Yeah.
year-round competitive swim
Yeah.
team.
Yes.
And she ended up quitting. She ended up not liking it anymore. She did it for years, and she was an amazing swimmer. And it came easy for her. She didn't have to work at it as hard as her brother.
Yeah.
And she's the one who ended up deciding, I'm taking a break from swim. I don't want to do
I
this
see.
anymore
Is
right
she
now.
still on a break, or has she picked it back up?
She actually swims summer swim team.
Okay.
And she will do middle school swim team as well. She just doesn't want to do year-round competitive.
I see.
Year-round competitive swim is tough. It is hard, and it takes a lot of commitment.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
believe
and our
that.
son, he's totally dedicated.
Yeah.
I know what I was going to say now, if you don't
Great.
mind.
Yes, perfect.
I was going to say, I think what we learn as a child follows us into our mature age, into our adulthood, because I know a lot of people that haven't learned how to swim well, and just because they have the sense about them and they're mature enough to be able to get in water, they still don't know how to swim well.
Yes.
So that's the importance of learning how to swim well from an early age. So that comes through because, even Wendy, if you don't mind me saying, she was brought up, just going to the pool and jumping in and not really learning how to swim well. She still has issues around the water today. If I come up behind her and I touch her in the water, she doesn't like
It's
it.
not that he touches me. It's that if he pushes me under, I panic.
I panic too, I'm sure.
I panic. I would not pass the tread test.
So you wouldn't pass the tread test?
No. Right now, you should see this thing. You have to see it. It is intense. It's a difficult.
And I'm not sure if we
for even
clarified-
an adult swimmer.
Okay.
It would be a hard thing to do. We have a swim parent, and what does he do, Brendan? He was a Navy SEAL. What did he had to go through training, like intense training, right, for the military. And he said, and he watched the tread, and he was like, "Wow." He's like, "That is some stuff that I would do." Like
Wow.
military wise, I mean, it's really intense.
Within-
And like I
within
said,
reason
within
for their
reason.
age.
It's in a
Sure.
controlled
And
environment.
we know
Yeah.
the experience of the child. If they're not ready for it, they're not going to
Yeah, if
do it.
they're not ready, they're not going to do it. And like
Yeah.
I said, it's for advanced
Sure.
students
Yep.
that are ready to do it.
But again, to clarify, it's 45 minutes of treading and you're making waves.
Yeah,
Is
they're
that the short
going. They're
version?
going.
And they're going up
They're
and down
bobbing up
underneath
and
the
down
water.
in the water, bobbing up and down, getting air, blowing bubbles, going underneath.
You're making them. You're telling them to bob up and down.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
And
okay.
then
No, they'll bob up and down themselves, but you tell them what you're going to do
Yeah.
beforehand. They have to bob up and down and stay nice and calm. The problem comes in when children they get water in their mouth and they start to panic, because if you're in a situation in the ocean, the chances of you getting water in your mouth are pretty strong, and it's
Yeah.
going to be
Yes.
salt water.
Yes.
You have to know how to handle those situations.
Yes.
right, it's because in our backyard, it's a totally controlled environment. But if that happens in real life, that's not going to be a controlled environment.
Yes.
And so we want them to be prepared for that. And so they bob up and down, blowing the bubbles, getting air, going down, getting air. And then after they do that for a while, they'll rest on their back and have a break, and they'll rest.
I see.
And they'll rest, and then they'll go back. Because really, what are you going to do? You don't want to wear yourself out, right? And so in real life, if you're in a situation where there's no side to get to, it's deep, you can't touch, what are you going to do? Right?
Yeah.
You got to know what to do.
Yes.
So,
Okay, so I want to ask a little bit about swimming for the adult that can swim in one sense of the word. They can doggy paddle. They can maybe even float a little bit, but they don't really have the strokes down or whatever. They're certainly not advanced. So like maybe I would picture like the adult that's been around water. They're maybe like in the beginner stage, not afraid of water, but not advanced at all. What are some, if they can't come to your class, what are some tips you would have or some things that they could work on this summer in the ocean maybe, or at a pool on vacation?
Well, number one, I would say it's easier to teach a child than an adult. When an adult starts to take to the water, if they haven't been in the water a lot, their body's generally extremely stiff. So,
Kids. You know
so
your
to work with them, staying nice and calm, and taking the width of the pool, like 15, 20 feet, and trying just to put their face in the water, push from one side to the other, and below long, slow, true, honest, calm bubbles. If they can do that, and then that's where it is. Swimming, going very, very slow. Get used to the way the water feels around their body. Get used to them letting their body go enough for their body to be able to be held up. Men generally don't float. Women do because they're not as dense. There are some teachers that I have, like Mr. Charles. He can float. I cannot float. You know, I'm saying this. Indian children, African American kids, their bodies are different. The African American kids, their body is, they have more muscle. They will sink in a heartbeat.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and the same with adults. So how do you teach a rock to turn into a feather? There are many methods to get kids to get adults to do that, but they have to go inside of themselves to overcome that because there's a lot of innate fear going on.
Yes.
So for an adult, getting back to your question, that's what I would start out with. I would start out with that. If they can't come to us, and just don't get themselves in even though we don't talk about deep water. For an adult, I would say do not go in water where you're going to be
Unable
in
to
water.
touch the bottom.
You're unable to touch the water. That's why when we were young, and we tell parents, don't let your kids swim in shallow water. If your kids don't swim in shallow water, guess what? They learn and they get to feel what
yes.
this depth is about, and they get
Yes.
to respect it a lot more.
Yep.
Because if you fall in water and you can't touch the bottom, and that's all you're used to,
Yes.
panic.
Yes,
that's what's going to happen.
Big problem.
Yeah.
Okay,
Big problem.
So on floating, so I was trying to have the kids teach me how to float last year, and I could not do it. So can you float like these kids float?
That's the thing. I cannot float, and nor can most kids that have a lot of density. They can't float, but you can get to a point where your body can be calm enough, and you can keep your face out of the water enough to save your life.
Yes. Okay.
There's a
So
skill
you
to
might
get
not-
you there.
You might not be floating like this
Yes.
with your whole body and your toes up out of the water.
Yep.
You might be floating like this.
Yes.
With your head, your tail, what we call your tail, your legs and
Okay.
bottom are dropped down, but your head's still up and you're able to breathe.
Okay, gotcha.
right?
So I can do that, and I can float decent on my back as long as I have the occasional kick with my feet. I can float, but I can't do it just motionless
Yeah.
like the kids do. And we're saying that's not a problem. Most adults can't, or at least adult males can't float motionless on their back anyway. Is that what you're saying?
Most cannot.
Okay, got
Yeah.
you. Okay, so back to the adult maybe that didn't have this training as a kid. They can go through underwater, blowing those bubbles. They feel comfortable with that. What might be a good next step?
Next step is if they're going to do it by themselves, is to watch maybe watch a YouTube video on freestyle.
Okay.
And to be able to not try to breathe, because breathing is extremely, extremely hard for a stiff adult. To now start using their arms to try to get them some propulsion through the water from one side to the other. They could always get a kickboard too and try to kick from one side to the other. But most people who are really stiff, to try to get them to kick across the pool, what generally happens is they will kick and they'll still go down like this, or they'll be so rigid in their body that they'll expend an incredible amount of energy going from point A to point B, and then if they don't get the side, their body's so tense and they don't know how to reverse that. Guess what happens? They go down. Or a child, and I've seen this many times before, when you're in a traumatic situation in the water, you can't hear, you can't see, you can't rationalize.
Yeah, it's just everything
yes.
shuts down.
Everything
Yeah.
shuts
You go
down.
into panic mode.
Yes.
I told an adult several years ago, started panicking at my swimming pool. I said, grab the ladder. and I stay calm. You got to stay calm. You got to do the opposite of what they are to try to get them to listen to you.
Yep.
Grab the ladder.
Yeah.
Could
Yeah.
not hear me, could not see me. If I wouldn't have helped them, they would have drowned.
This
You
was
know?
an adult.
And the ladder was right
it was an
there.
adult.
Yeah. And the ladder was like right in front of her, but she was in such a panic.
Yes.
It's a big problem.
Yeah.
And there are kids that come out of the womb, seriously, that are deathly afraid of the water. If you bring your child to me and you go tell your friends, my child didn't like swimming lessons, they were crying, they're scared of the water. Please, that's another thing. Please don't do that. Just because your child doesn't like the water or doesn't like coming to swimming lessons does not mean they're afraid
scared
of the water.
or like, you know, have
Very-
some kind of phobia.
Yes.
If two of 10 children are natural swimmers, 1 in 50 kids or 60 kids, or probably even higher than that. And I really haven't thought about it, but it's very minute. The ones that have an innate fear of the water, and you have
Okay.
to treat them extremely different.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that's what I'm just going to speak on that. Just
That's
just
our
real
skill, though,
Yeah.
to be able to handle that.
The Sweetmans in Brendan, especially, they're all of them are just so incredibly gifted at being able to handle difficult situations like that with kids that you know, like he already talked about, you know, kids that have, you know, disadvantages, disabilities, challenges, you know, so many programs would not even begin to know what to do with a child that can't hear. How are you going to teach that child to swim? You know,
Yes.
or a child that, you know, can't communicate verbally.
Yep.
You know, they won't touch them. You know, they just don't know what to do. But
Yep.
the Sweetmans, they are not. They welcome every child. You know, that as long as the parents are on board.
Yep.
You know, and I mean, it's amazing to see. And children that do have true, absolute fear of the water, like Brendan said, they have to be handled totally different than a
Yes.
child that might just not like the water.
And, you know, so in a class every day is 1 hour long. A kid like that, I may say, "Mama, you gonna trust me? If you trust me, listen to what I'm saying. Let your kid stay here until lunch for 4 hours. Bring his lunch, and I'm going to put him on my back, and I'm going to teach with him on my back. And at start, he'll be maybe, no, don't want to do, no, put me down, put me down. I say, no, you stay on my back. And I start to soften him, start to soften them. This is not a one shot. You come for an hour and then you get out. If you stay any more, you pay me more money. No.
Yep.
If your child's not where I want them to be, I'm going to say, you stay. You're not paying me any more money.
Yep.
What's more important than money is us getting this message across, is your child being able to save their life.
Yes.
We have something on the line here, and it's a lot more than the finances.
Yes, absolutely. Well, yes, and that's what I really like about how you guys are approaching this, because we don't have any close friends that have lost a child to drowning, thankfully, but we all know that it happens a lot. And my, the closest experience I had was, this was an adult. This was years ago in New York. We lived by the lakes. We had boats, and we had company for the weekend, and we were showing them a good time with skiing behind the boat and wakeboarding and so on. Well, this guy, 17, 18 years old, jumps in the lake and was swimming. And of course, when you're 18 years old and you're a guy, if you're not a great swimmer and you're having a little bit of trouble getting back to the boat, guess what? You don't say, before you really need to, you don't say, hey, I'm having a little trouble here. Can someone... You try to get through it.
Right.
Well, no one really knew this guy was in that situation. By the time this guy got on the boat, he's like, man, I got to be honest with you, that scared me. And here I am on the boat. I saw him the whole time. I never knew he was, you know what I mean? That scared me. I'm like, that guy was having trouble, and I didn't realize it.
He didn't realize it.
And he didn't want to call for help before he really needed it. Well, by the time they really need it, sometimes
It could be
it's
too
like
late.
a little too late.
And if I may say, and you know what's also scary? The amount of people I've saved their life. And I personally, me, who saved a lot of kids' lives, would be scared to jump in and save him. This is why we tell boys, especially, boys, you're going to get to an age where you're going to be driving. Your friends are going to be driving. You're going to be doing things that your mommy and daddy may not approve of.
Or may not even know that you're
this
doing.
This is the kind of stuff we talk.
Yeah.
We're supposed to be talking about swim lessons. We're talking about life lessons.
We're talking
here.
about real life.
Yes.
And guess what you don't do? You never, ever go swimming with someone that cannot swim. You make sure you be the angel amongst you that make sure that somebody knows how to swim. A couple years ago, we lived right by the water. The same thing happened. 18-year-old boy jumped off the cliff. Nobody
lake.
knew. Went
Well,
under. It happens
yeah.
so often.
He was with
and
his
it is-
friends. He was with a group of, teen boys, and they were all doing it. And
Yep.
instead, like what you said, instead of him being like, I don't know how to swim, I'm not doing this. He,
Yeah.
he didn't want to
Because
be that
ego
kid.
comes into
Right,
boys.
ego.
It's testosterone. Like
Yes.
they can do it. And I would rather know what I can't do than find out in the moment
that you can't.
that I'm in it that I can't.
Yes. Now, are you saying there's an 18-year-old young man in the water struggling in a lake? You're saying even you would be a little bit hesitant. I'm not hesitant. You'd probably do it, but even you understand that that could be a problem for you with your swimming skills to jump in and save them.
Yes.
Is that because they thrash around or
Panic.
panic?
Because
They'll
I've
take
had
you
it.
down.
Both down?
I've had it happen way too many times by big people where they will pull you under the water. And you know what I've had to do is I've had to take them under the water and push myself away. One of our swim parents, he, military guy, he said he had to take a guy under the water and basically knock him out. To
Because
get
he
him to
was in
let
such a
go.
panic.
It is stricken. So what I would try to do is if I didn't have any type of flotation device, if I had a flotation device, I'd push it to him and I'd tell him to hold on and I would say, listen to me, stay calm. I race paddle boards. I race paddle boards. And a guy came off I was sitting there paddleboarding in the Cumberland River last year, and this car came and slammed straight over the barrier, went into the water.
truck went into
the guy
the lake.
was asleep. I think he was on drugs. And guess what?
You're out paddleboarding?
Yes.
Yeah.
The
Right.
Cumberland River that runs through
Cumberland
Ter-
River.
Nashville?
We live right at Old Hickory Lake.
Yeah.
So Old Hickory
Yeah,
Lake
okay.
is Cumberland
Yes,
River
absolutely.
as well. Right.
But, on the river. And guess what? He fell asleep and he was panicking. He was in his truck and I'm sitting there right beside him watching him. I had my eyes on him, kind of assessing the situation, and he could not get out of his car. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I'm going to go down trying to save
That
this
truck
guy.
was going down.
And I said, roll your window down, get out of the car. He was trying to open the door. I said, you cannot open your door. And luckily he had windows that rolled down.
Yeah,
and
he
they
Okay.
didn't
weren't-
They
have
were
electric.
manual?
They
they were manual windows.
So
And
He was in like a
got
little old
out.
pickup truck.
okay.
And he got out, and I helped him get back to the side. And that's, everything happened after that with the cops had to come and stuff like that. But it was still a situation. So
Yeah.
I'm saying it's important to learn. And just
Yeah.
because we're older does not mean just because we have the sense to work our way through a fight in a bar that we have the situation to work ourselves out of a water
Yes.
situation.
Yes, absolutely. And the only other thing I would say on that too is that last summer we had friends that were down in Florida and they were in the ocean some and the pool some, and they were in the pool and it was them and their friends and they each had some kids, and next thing you know, our friend looks beside her and their friend's kid was at the bottom of the pool, 2-3 years old, and I'm talking like right there. I'm
Yes.
talking there's 4 adults in
Yes.
this corner of the pool and there's a kid right there that no one sees, everyone loves, no one sees.
Yeah.
They get her, she's fine, thank goodness, but at this point she's blue and they're doing the whole thing and she survived. But to me that's so scary because we're not just talking about after hours at a hotel, the pool is shut, the gate's locked, kid jumps over and jumps in. Like we're talking like
People
lifeguards on
surrounded, yeah.
duty. There's adults in the pool when this kid almost died.
Yeah.
So
And we hear that. We hear stories like that all the time.
Yeah.
It happens. And that's what makes it so much even more important and serious to us, because somehow there is this disconnect because you have water. We're mostly made of water. Water is great. We have to have it to survive. But if you think about it, it can kill you. I mean, it's intense to think about it that way, but that's the way you have to think about it, especially in a recreational setting like that, because you don't think, you're having a good time, you're not thinking about it, and then all of a sudden there's a child on the bottom of the pool.
Yes.
And that child was surrounded by people.
Yes.
I mean, it happens all the time.
I'm sure it does.
And not everybody's as lucky as your friend's child.
I'm sure.
And the number one thing I would tell a parent, and what we tell parents, is don't be the fashionable parent that has a swimming pool that feels like or feels pressured to have a swim party for your 3-year-old.
Oh.
Don't do it. It's not worth
Makes us
it.
cringe.
Oh, okay.
It's not worth it.
So-
Don't do it.
Okay, so this is interesting. So this is not a question I thought of, but now I'm curious to ask you guys. So you've seen multiple different situations. What are the circumstances or situations that you see that your mind instantly raises a red flag? Probably one of them, 3-year-old having a party at the pool. That in your mind is like, ooh, that's
Yeah.
a dangerous situation. Are there other situations that you guys have seen?
Oh, yeah.
Or
Yeah,
raises a red flag in your
Parents
mind.
sitting on the side of the pool, hanging
Looking at their
out,
phone.
looking at their phone, looking at a book, chatting with each other. Kids over in the pool with puddle jumpers or water wings on.
Because they have this
False sense of security.
False sense of security,
We
yeah.
didn't even talk about that, and I'll touch on it just briefly because I don't know how much time we have. But that's the thing about those water wings and puddle jumpers, those flotation devices that we think are keeping our children from drowning, can actually really be their detriment, because they get a false sense of security. The child, the parents do too. But the child especially, they think they have these superpowers. They've got these things on and they can run and jump in the pool and they're going to pop back up,
Yes. Yep.
And so before you know it, they forget that they don't have them on.
Yep.
And they run and they jump in the pool and they don't come back up. And that happens time and time again. So that is a red flag too. Parents are just sitting, they're there with their child at the pool, but they're not really there with their child at the pool.
Right.
Does that make
Yes.
sense? You have to be, when you have your child, especially a child that does not know how to swim, that has not had proper life-saving survival lessons, going to the pool is really not fun as a parent. It's not, because if you're really in tune with the severity of a child that can't swim being around a body of water, I don't know how you can relax.
Yes.
You should never take your eyes off that child, ever.
Yep.
Ever.
But
it happens all the time.
But if the child have been given wings to fly and understand the laws of the water without even being able to speak a word, they have this deeper respect.
Yeah.
They will generally stay away from it.
Yeah. It's teaching
Not
you
out of
healthy
fear, out of
respect.
respect.
Right. It's we don't ever want a child to be fearful. They need to learn respect. And usually the only way a child can learn that is to have some type of direct experience, right? Some type of direct experience. Being
for the
taught,
parents.
or
Yes.
the parents, and being taught that they need to respect the water. The parent has to respect the water. The child has to respect the water. It is broad. It covers a broad area when it comes to water in general.
Yep. Yeah. So of those two, I'm thinking 3-year-old birthday party, we're all going to get in the pool. I think that's very common, but I think probably what happens more as parents are listening to this is they're at the pool with their kids. They are reading a book because all of their kids have floaties on or whatever. Because I've been there.
Yeah.
You're saying that's cause for concern
Yeah,
for you too.
absolutely.
As you see that happening, you're concerned. Are there others?
Well,
Others that come to mind?
what I say to parents, and this kind of probably pisses some parents off, but I generally do that naturally anyway. I say, I know you love your child more than I do, but I guarantee I'll watch him better at a pool.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yep.
And And that makes sense. That I mean, anything else I would say is just the floaties things, or a parent that lives by water and they say, "Oh yeah, Johnny and Ralphie," or why does it always have to be Johnny?
Poor John. Poor John.
Sesamoid and Freeman decide, oh, they're going to be together. They're only 5 and 6. They're old enough, and they're going to stay together, and they're going to go down by the water, and I'm going to go do some laundry.
Yeah.
No,
Yep.
not a good idea.
Problem. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Not to take this too far, but your average adult, not a great swimmer, wants to get better. They can go through the water. They can blow bubbles, kind of low and slow, and they feel comfortable. They're going to a freestyle now, and they can get that on YouTube and work through all that. Is there a step beyond that then that you would suggest that they work on?
Being able to see them individually would really be more helpful than just saying something. But I think there's great learning in them, and it's the same with what we do in our swim program. Repetition, over and over and over. I see this in swim teams. Like, there's not enough, for my liking, there's not enough repetition. There needs to be repetition. If you don't have something down, or even if you have it down, do it over and over again. Don't do it right. Don't do it wrong. Learn to do it right and do repetition.
Yes.
And their body will naturally start to let go. And when they let go, then they'll be ready for something else. But number one, most importantly, do not go too fast.
Okay.
For an adult.
And you mentioned just the panic that can come in with getting some water in your mouth. You swim in the ocean, you're going to get water in your mouth. For kids, but even adults, what is your general kind of advice on that? On how to become okay with water in your mouth and it doesn't freak you out, and you can still be calm when you're intaking some water.
Again, that's a really hard one because there's nothing worse than getting water up your nose.
Ugh.
And I am so careful because what happens with little kids? They'll be in the water like this, and some kids will roll over this way. Some kids will have this incessant behavior of throwing their head back. So I and my staff are very well aware of the ones that do that, and we will make sure that their head stays up out of the water because I do not want a young kid to get water up their nose. It's really painful.
And drink a lot of water.
And drink a lot of water. But it's going to happen. It comes with the territory, learning how to swim, getting water up your nose, and getting water in your mouth. When they become older, I think the question you're talking about is you have to be clear on any situation that could happen and be calm if it does. That would be my answer.
It's just a mental thing. It's just really being able to stay calm.
Yes.
You know? Because when panic sets in, that's when things start really getting out
Breathing
of control.
stops.
Yeah, you get tense, breathing stops. You know, that's why they call drowning a silent death. I don't know if you've ever heard it referred to as a silent death, but they call drowning a silent death, and it's because once you start taking on water, and there is a term for it, and there's like a scientific term for it that I cannot recall at the moment, but basically your throat shuts off, which also in return shuts off your ability to call for help, anything. So at that point, everything starts to shut down. You stop breathing, you go under the water, and you continue to go under the water. And it's quiet. It's so quiet. Like our daughter, when we first bought our house with our pool where we teach now, our little girl was 2.5, and we were sitting out, I think it was April, and we were sitting out, Brendan, myself, and one of our instructors at the time, we were interviewing her for an instructor position. She had graduated from the Sweetman program, which a lot of our instructors have. Yeah. And we were sitting out by the pool, and Maya was out there with us doing her toddler thing, as toddlers do, and there happened to be a ball or something in the pool. And Maya reaches over, and she's trying to get it, and she's reaching with her little hand. She's trying to get it, trying, and bloop, she falls in the water. And it was totally quiet. Like, if we hadn't have been sitting right there, we would not have heard her.
Yes.
And so it's quiet that way. It's quiet when people start to take on water. They can't call for help. And it's not this thrashing around that you see on like TV, you know, that dramatic, you know, flailing and, you know, all that. It's nothing like that.
Yes.
It's, if anything, it's the opposite of that.
It's more scary than that.
It's
more
way more
sinister.
scary.
Yeah. Brendan, so you swim a lot. You have swam the way it sounds.
Now I you know, I swam on a swim team in New Zealand till I was probably 34, 35. No, I just paddle now.
Okay.
We're starting a race team here in Nashville, so we do a thing called the Southern Stoke Series, and we go around paddle and race paddle boards, which is going to be an Olympic sport. And basically, paddling is the same as swimming, except you're
Not in the water.
Okay.
You're on top of the water, and your paddle is taking the place of what your hand would do.
Okay.
Reaching out. It's kind of the same concept.
So you're talking about just stand-up paddling, right?
Uh-huh.
Okay. All right. We only tried that last summer for the first time. And that's sort of a new thing. I mean, it's been around for a few years, right? But it's gained popularity in the last couple of years.
It really has. And the race boards are like, you know, a friend of mine and myself, we're bringing in Infinity race boards from Dana Point in California now to Nashville. We're having a demo center. So if anybody wants to try a demo board, people can come out and try that. It's just,
Really?
Yeah.
If someone wants to get, is there a place they can go online to get more info on that? If they're in
We're
Nashville?
just now starting that, but
Okay.
and I'm going to start. We're trying to come up with a funny name for a race team too.
Okay.
You know?
So how will this race, you said this is going to be an Olympic sport.
Yes.
How will this work? It sounds like it's a team thing.
It probably, the team things are more long distance type stuff. Like we
Okay.
race 32 miles, but that's done solely. A friend of ours, Ben Freeberg in Chattanooga, started this race called Chattajack, and it's incredible. You got to do it 5 years, and you get this amazing belt buckle. I gotta get my belt buckle.
How many
Going
years
for
have you
the
done
buckle.
I've only done it twice. This year will be my third year. But
Okay.
you have to do it 5 years in a row. So if you get sick, I'm going to go out there and fake it because you know what? If you don't do it consecutive, you got to start all over again.
Oh my goodness.
I know. So your question was,
Well, back to swimming, but you said you've kind of paddleboarding has kind of taken over swimming for you.
yeah, it has. And the workouts that they do in a pool is very similar to the type of workouts that we do through Paddle Monster.
Okay.
Though my son would beg to differ.
Yeah.
On what?
The workout between swimming
okay.
and
Well,
paddleboarding.
swimming
Okay.
would be more anaerobic threshold.
Yes.
A lot of the time where we're doing more aerobic, and then 2 months before a race we go more anaerobic. But they're very similar in workouts.
Okay. I was curious, just as one of the final questions here, so we can wrap this up. What generally speaking are the kind of physical, maybe injuries or circumstances of a person where swimming makes the most sense as a form of exercise?
That's a good question.
You know, because swimming is actually really great exercise.
It is actually the first. We always say it's the first and the last sport you can do. It's the first sport you can do as a child,
Interesting.
and the last sport. I mean, you can do it until you're ready to
Yeah,
leave the planet. You know, I mean,
that is interesting. I never
Yeah.
thought about it that way, but it's totally accurate.
yeah.
So are there injuries or circumstances where like exercise, you know, via swimming just makes the most sense?
I think it's just a load-bearing sport. It's a load-bearing sport, and I think that to be able to get in the water and to be kind of heavy on the joint-free type thing, I think that's probably a good sport, and it's very good cardiovascular exercise.
Yeah.
You know, whether you're swimming well or not is beside the point. You're still getting
Moving.
a good
Yeah.
workout. If it takes me 10 hours to do an Ironman and it takes a pro 8 hours, you know,
Yep.
I'm working harder than he is for 2 more hours at least.
Yes.
I think it's just a really good. I mean, think about how many times doctors prescribe water therapy as
Yes.
you know,
Yes.
because it's non-weight bearing,
Yes.
right?
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Yep. I mean, I've always thought about it as like one of the most healthy, good for the body forms of exercise that there is. Although
Our son is very fit, being a year-round swimmer.
He's a
I'm
great
sure.
paddler too.
I'm sure.
And he
Yep.
and he can paddle like a champ because he's so fit. I mean,
Yep.
swimming, 10, 12 hours a week.
Yeah. I'm sure he has a strong core.
Yeah, a very strong core, and then his lung capacity is amazing.
Yep.
Yeah.
Is there any place? Well, how are we going to get to know about this documentary in the future if that comes out? Is there any place
well,
that's
we're meeting on
public
Sunday. They're coming in. They just moved away to
Michigan.
Michigan.
Yeah.
They're coming on Sunday. We're going to eat and we're going to do some finalizing, and
Okay.
it's coming to the end. It's to the end of the videoing.
Okay.
Who knows? Your children may have been in it from last summer.
Cool.
Because there was a lot of videography done for the last several years.
Okay. Okay.
So we'll know more about it probably over the next couple of weeks. Kind
Yeah,
of
they're
how far.
they're
Okay.
trying to wrap it up.
Okay.
And
But Ed works. I know he's been with a lot of different musicians, so that's what he does. He's a sound tech guy, so
Okay.
he travels around. So this is a labor of love for them, and it's something that they're very passionate about. And both of their kids will graduate from our swim program one way or another, with them living so far away.
Okay.
And their daughter is one of those girls at a very young age that's done incredible.
Yep.
She probably graduated. She probably passed the tread test. I think at probably 5
Yeah,
or so.
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So the documentary is definitely happening.
Yes, sir.
And you guys have a website and a Facebook page. So maybe give people that, because if they follow you on Facebook, that would probably give them the notification when the documentary comes out, right?
Yes.
So what is the website and Facebook
I'll let
page?
Wendy handle that one.
so Facebook is Brendan Sweetman Swimmers,
Okay. And Sweetman, Sweetman.
just like a sweet man.
Yep.
Most of the time he is.
Huh, what a coincidence.
What a coincidence. And then our website is simply sweetmanswimmers.com.
Yes. Great.
Yeah.
Great. Well, thank you guys both for being on. I really appreciate
Thank you.
this.
Thank
I just
you.
from the first time I found out about you guys, it was through friends. It was word of mouth. It was friends from church, and they kind of just swore by it, and they've been sending their kids, and I was just fascinated by the whole process since day one. And I was talking to another friend from upstate New York, and he was fascinated by it. So thank you for being on. Just to wrap it up. Do you have any general advice you kind of wrap this up with for maybe parents my age, mid-30s, 40s, have some smaller kids interested in maybe having their kids get better at swimming in general, or just general advice as we go into the summer and kids are around the ocean and pools and things like that? I mean, is there any final advice you'd want to give?
Number one, don't ever take your eyes off of them. And do not put floaties on them. Teach them how to swim naturally and teach them how to save their life. So if anything happens, they're going to be able to save themselves by their own inner engineering, not by a device which has the ability to fail or come off, or at times where children will think they're on and they'll jump in the water and they don't come back up to the top, and nobody's there to watch them, and they drown.
Yep.
And even if they don't come to our program, get into a life-saving program. Get into an infant survival swim or some kind of program that's actually going to teach survival skills first and foremost. Doesn't have to be us. We would love for you to come to our program, but get proper swim lessons for your children. Proper swim lessons.
And a lot of people won't teach what we teach. I'm going to be biased here to say I don't think there's anybody that teaches children in the same manner that we do.
No.
And I'm not saying there's not other programs that teach it, but it's not easy. It is the hardest part of swimming, even the swim team. It is the hardest part of what you have to do. from the foundation level. It's so hard, and there's so much skill involved in it that most people shy away from it.
Yeah. Yep. Great. Well, thanks for that, and thank you again for being on. Really
Thanks for
appreciate it.
having
This was
us.
great fun.
Thank you.
And sorry Joe Rogan wasn't here.
What time is it? Boy, you